Good morning, friends. I'm Justin Bullis, the Director of Production and the Online Worship Experience here at St. Andrew, and it is my privilege to welcome you to worship today. We are so grateful that you've chosen to join us here on our YouTube channel for this alternative worship experience, which is designed to be slightly more condensed, more informal, and better suited for viewing at home or on the go, as well as sharing with friends and family online. Welcome to this sacred online space, where you are invited, included, and valued as a vital and beloved member of our worshiping community. Please take a moment to go check in at gostandrew.com/sign-in to let us know from where or when you happen to be joining us. While you're there, you can use the online form to let us know if you have any prayer concerns or questions about our church. As Reverend Mark reminds us every week, St. Andrew is an open, affirming, inclusive congregation that welcomes saints and sinners, believers and skeptics, the lost and the found, the wanderers and the wanderers, families of all shapes and sizes, and people from every point along life's journey. No matter who you are or where you've been, no matter what you believe or even if you believe anything at all, you are welcome here and you belong here. So now, please enjoy Reverend Mark's second message in our Lenten series, 40 Days of Forgiveness.
Romans chapter 7, verses 15 through 25. I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Now if I do what I do not want, I agree that the law is good. But in fact, it is no longer I that do it, but the sin that dwells within me. For I know that nothing good dwells within me, that is, in my flesh. I can will what is right, but I cannot do it. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do. Now if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I that do it, but sin that dwells within me. So I find it to be law that when I want to do what is good, evil lies close at hand. For I delight in the law of God in my inmost self, but I see in my members another law at war with the law of my mind, making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members. Wretched person that I am, who will rescue me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, with my mind, I am a slave to the law of God, but with my flesh, I am a slave to the law of sin.
I was talking recently with a successful guru in the field of philanthropy. Over his career, this individual has raised billions of dollars for research hospitals and universities around the country, primarily from high net worth benefactors. He talks with very wealthy people. They write very large checks. So I was looking for some pointers. What's your secret? I asked. How have you been so successful? And his response was stunning, not only for its simplicity, but for its beauty. He said, my job is not to raise money. I'm not in the fundraising business. My business is helping people arrive before they depart. What did he mean, helping people arrive before they depart? Most of the benefactors he works with are innovators, entrepreneurs, executives who have spent their entire lives working to turn ideas and passions or products into profit. And on their way to wild success, they made tremendous personal sacrifices. Perhaps they sidelined or neglected some part of their lives, their families, or their ideals even, that might have made their lives more meaningful. Maybe they confused who they are with what they do, their true self with their public persona, their identity with their achievements. Maybe they were so consumed by their work that they never quite got around to contributing to the world. But eventually they come to the end of their careers, or maybe even the end of their lives, and they begin to look for meaning. They want to make a difference, give back, leave a legacy. And so my friend's task is to help them contribute to what matters most to them, to, as he says, to help them arrive before they depart. Is it possible to live our entire lives and never really arrive? To never know our true self? The greatest tragedy in life, perhaps our greatest fear, is that at the moment of our death, we might suddenly stand before God and only then discover who we truly are, who we've truly been all this time. To only then discover that our true self is not the self we tried to be in all the years we were given to live. I was driving to work about 5 years ago, listening to NPR News when it was announced that the great poet Derek Walcott had died. A reporter gave a brief biography of Walcott's life, and then a narrator read one of Walcott's most famous poems, Love After Love. The poem moved me so deeply, I had to pull my car to the side of the road. It's a call to arrive before we depart, to know our true self and to love that self above all the other selves we try to be.
The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread. Give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life.
To arrive before we depart is to welcome that stranger, to sit and eat with the one who has loved us all our life, whom we ignored for another. Who is that stranger? Simply put, it's our true self. Walcott says we ignore that stranger for another, but maybe the truth really is that we repress it, sometimes with fierce intensity. There is in each of us a lifelong battle between that stranger, our true self, and the self we've chosen, our outward persona, the person we want ourselves and others to believe we are. This is a universal human struggle, and it plays out every day of our lives. The Apostle Paul describes it this way in the book of Romans. He says, "What I don't understand about myself is that I decide one way, but then I act another, doing things I absolutely despise. The power of sin," he says, "within me keeps sabotaging my best intentions. I can will it, but I can't do it. I decide to do good, but I don't really do it. I decide not to do bad, but then I do it anyway. My decisions, such as they are, they don't result in actions. Something," he says, "gets the better of me every time." Does this sound familiar to you? Can you relate to this inner battle that Paul describes? I decide to do good, but I don't really do it. I decide not to do bad, and then I do it anyway. Paul names a painful truth for us, that to be human is to live with the unsettling awareness that our lives are full of glaring contradictions. We know in our hearts what's right, what's just and good, but there's often a gap between what we know and what we do, between our intentions and our actions. And Paul says, we know the good we're supposed to do because we have the law revealed in Hebrew Scripture. The Hebrew law consists of 613 commandments. Some of those commandments seem rather trivial than others, but taken together, they ultimately tell us how to live our lives with integrity and generosity, how to treat others fairly and compassionately, how to settle disputes, resolve conflict, build and maintain a just society. These commandments are the bedrock of what we understand as right and wrong. Paul says these commandments are holy and necessary. We can know them, we can aspire to fulfill them, we can genuinely intend to honor them in our daily living. But the truth is, we don't seem to actually do them very well. Paul says there's something at work within us, a power that works against our best intentions and highest ideals. It gets the better of us. We do the very thing we know we shouldn't do. We fail to do what we know is right. Our will is strong, but our flesh is weak. We get tripped up by our own humanness, our weaknesses, our imperfections. What's at the heart of this battle within us? It's not the rules. The rules are inherently good. It's not that we are inherently bad rule followers, although the surest way to get someone to do something is to tell them not to do it. But that's not really our problem either. It's something else. Well, Paul calls it the power of sin. But the word sin has been so misunderstood and misused by modern Christians that it's lost its true meaning. We often think of sin as some individual act, a moral transgression like lying, stealing, cheating, road rage, general jerkiness. These are sinful acts, but none of them really captures the deeper struggle that Paul describes. The Greek word for sin is hamartia. And there are two origins of this word, hamartia, and surprisingly, neither are theological or spiritual. The first is from the ancient Greek sport of archery. Hamartia literally means to miss the mark or bullseye. If you've ever shot an arrow from a bow, you know how hard it is to hit the bullseye. You draw the string, you set your aim, you release the arrow. Sometimes you miss the mark. Sometimes you even miss the bale of hay. So perhaps this, quote, power of sin refers to the act of missing the bullseye of God's law by committing some individual transgression, breaking one of those commandments. But I think there's another understanding of hamartia that better unlocks this passage from Romans for us. This origin of hamartia is grounded not in Greek archery, but Greek tragedy. In Greek theater, hamartia was known as the tragic flaw, an inherent defect or shortcoming in the hero, a hero who is otherwise a superior being who's favored by great fortune. Every great tragedy turns on hamartia, the hero's tragic flaw. Othello's hamartia was his jealousy. Hamlet's was his procrastination. For Romeo, it was his rashness. For Juliet, her impulsiveness. What is this power of sin that trips us up? It's not an individual act or moral transgression. It's something that precedes the deed itself. The ancients called it the tragic flaw, something that gets in our way. I like to think of it as impairment. Sin at its most basic level is an impaired relationship with God, with others, even with ourselves. And this power of sin within us that Paul describes is the result of an impaired relationship with our true self, trying to be someone we're not, denying the person we really are. The great mystic and monk Thomas Merton spoke often of what he called the false self. He said the false self is the persona that we project to the world. It's the person we try to be that doesn't think it needs God's guidance or God's love. The false self is an amalgam of all the values and expectations that our world projects onto us. Our culture, education, our gender, our job, politics, families, achievements. The world tells us who we're supposed to be, what will get us noticed, how we will get affirmation and validation. So that's when we wrap ourselves in all these labels. Democrat, Republican, Christian, American, male, female, straight, gay, preacher, nurse, teacher, skinny, blonde, smart, educated, successful, wealthy. You can probably add to that list whatever happens to get you noticed. All these labels, they stick to us. This is how we navigate our way through this world. These labels, they help us get through life. They're not necessarily bad. In fact, they're very useful. They lead to jobs, to love, to relationships, belonging, influence, status. So we think that's who we are. We forget that these are just the costumes that we wear. And these costumes, they have a shadow side. Because if those costumes become our sole identity, we will do anything to keep them on. We will become striving, pretentious, clingy, manipulative, deceptive, duplicitous. If success is our chosen costume, we might bend the rules or cut corners or undercut others to climb the corporate ladder. If wealth is our chosen costume, we might be inclined to cheat or steal or cook the books to get ahead. If best mom or best dad is our chosen costume, we might drive our kids to overachieve. We might exaggerate about their achievements on social media. We might resort to helicopter or snowplow parenting tactics. We will become whatever we need to be in that moment just to get validated. Until there comes a time when we no longer really know ourselves and we can no longer remember who we really are. The ancient Greeks, they had a word for this, hypocrite. It referred to those actors on stage that would wear two different masks so they could play two different roles in the same play. Maybe you remember Arthur Miller's The Death of a Salesman. Willie Loman is obsessed with becoming a big shot. Even well into his 60s, he's striving for a life that he will never live. Exaggerating his successes, covering up his failures. Everyone seems to know who Willie Loman is, except Willie Loman. And when the truth finally dawns on him, it's too much. He despairs and takes his life. And standing at his father's grave, his son Biff says he had the wrong dreams. He never knew who he was. Hamartia. It's the tragic flaw that impairs our relationship with our true self. One of the greatest personal achievements in life is to arrive before we depart, to know and love our true self. But why is this so difficult, so rare? One writer put it this way. He said, in all of creation, identity is a challenge only for humans. A tulip knows exactly what it is. It's never tempted by false ways of being, nor does it face complicated decisions in the process of becoming. And so it is with dogs, rocks, trees, stars, amoebas, electrons. All give glory to God by being exactly what they are. Humans, however, encounter a more challenging existence. We think, we consider options, we decide, we act, we doubt. Simple being is tremendously difficult to achieve, and fully authentic being is extremely rare. How do we recognize and tame the false self? You might ask yourself, where in my life am I fearful or self-protective or possessive? When do I become manipulative, destructive to myself or to others? When do I become self-promoting? What do I tend to judge in other people? What is the truth about myself, my weaknesses, my past, that I try to hide from others? Years ago, Lori and I were at Disneyland riding the indoor roller coaster Space Mountain. In other words, we were traveling through deep space at the speed of light. It was pitch black, except for the stars. Moments into the ride, our rocket ship came to an abrupt stop. And after several minutes of waiting, a voice over the loudspeaker informed us of a mechanical problem. "The lights will be coming on shortly," said the disembodied voice. "Please step out of your rocket ship and traverse the catwalk to the emergency exit." And then the lights suddenly came on, and our whole perception of Disneyland suddenly changed. The happiest place on earth looked suddenly more like the most ordinary place on earth. Below all those tracks, strewn across that concrete floor, were 1,000,000 pounds of chewed gum, dozens of sunglasses, Mickey Mouse ears, water bottles, trash, all the stuff you never see when the lights are off. Maybe that's something like the truth self. Something so real and unadorned, something so deeply human and so terribly in need of love. Do you ever worry that if the lights were turned on, if your shadows were revealed, if your true self was exposed, you'd be found somehow unlovable or less worthy? Our true self is the self we knew before we ever knew the world, before the world ever knew us. It's the naked self, before all the labels and costumes. The psalmist called it in Psalm 139, the inmost being. It's our essence, our eternal self, the self that God knows and loves unconditionally. And every day it's assaulted by the false self. In every one of us, there's one voice in us that says, "I'm invincible," and the other says, "I'm vulnerable." One voice says, "I am worthy because of my achievements," and the other says, "I worry that I might be failing." One voice says, "Everything's great," and the other one says, "Something's not right." One says, "Don't mess with me," and the other one says, "I'm afraid." One says, "I'm strong," the other says, "I'm fragile." And on most days, the world only lets the voice of the false self speak. And then that voice gets added to the cacophony of other voices, so that all we do in this world is shout and argue, divide and conquer. And this is why we can't talk about practicing forgiveness and reconciliation with others if we haven't gotten around to reconciling these two competing selves within each of us. Paul says living for the false self leads to a lot of unnecessary personal suffering, a kind of unpeace in our lives. And so he asks, who will rescue me from this, quote, body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ, our Lord, he says. In other words, he points to Christ, the one who comes looking for the true, honest, vulnerable, messy self, and names it as beautiful: the prostitute, the beggar, the leper, the criminal on the cross, all the ones whose mess couldn't be covered up. A man came into my office one day. He was a partner in a real estate firm. He'd come across some information about one of his partner's business deals that, while seemingly legal, wasn't at all ethical. It cut against the grain of his values and principles, his conscience and character, his faith. And so he spoke up. He took a stand. By the end of the week, his partners took a vote. They let him go. They bought out his share of the firm. I felt terrible for him. His life would change because of what he did. But surprisingly, he told me, I'm actually fine. It was something I had to do in order to be the person I was created to be. It was hard, but I did the right thing. And it's like this huge burden has been lifted from me. That's living for the true self. As the poet Derek Walcott says, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Today's takeaways. Our life purpose is to arrive before we depart. Our life struggle is trying to be someone we're not, while denying the person we really are. In the eyes of God, the real and unadorned is lovely and worthy enough.
Don't go changing to try and please me. You never let me down before. Don't imagine you're too familiar, and I don't see you anymore. I would not leave you in times of trouble. We never could have come this far. I took the good times, I'll take the bad times, I'll take you just the way you are. Don't go trying some new fashion. Don't change the color of your hair. You always have my unspoken passion, although I might not seem to care. I don't want clever conversation. I never want to work that hard. I just want someone that I can talk to. I want you just the way you are. I need to know that you will always be the same old someone that I knew. What will it take till you believe in me the way that I believe in you? I said I love you, and that's forever. And And this I promise from the heart. I could not love you any better. I love you just the way you are. I don't want clever conversation. I never want to work that hard. I just want someone that I can talk to. I want you just the way you are.
Good morning and welcome to Cafe Connect. I'm Mary D. Seibold.
And I'm Helen Burnside.
And I'm Alison McCallen. And together with our team of wonderful hosts, we greet newcomers to St. Andrew each Sunday morning right here in Cafe Connect. Since its inception, St. Andrew has been an inclusive church that welcomes all people. Indeed, the very name St. Andrew was chosen because Andrew was the disciple who was forever inviting people to come and meet the Jesus that he knew and loved.
St. Andrew had its beginnings back in 1960 when Rachel Lowe began knocking on doors in a new neighborhood called Littleton. She wanted to see if residents were interested in starting a new church. And 62 years later, we are still welcoming our neighbors into this faith family. Our mission has always been the same. We strive to welcome our visitors with love and enthusiasm so they will want to be a part of our journey of faith.
At Cafe Connect, we greet newcomers, offer them a cup of coffee, donut holes, a welcome bag containing information about St. Andrew, and a stainless mug with the words from Micah, do justice, love kindness, walk humbly, etched on it. We offer them a chance to visit, ask questions, and we extend an invitation to attend an Exploring St. Andrew event where they will have an opportunity to learn more about this church and the height, breadth, and depth of our ministries. And perhaps most importantly, come to call this amazing place home.
One question that comes up fairly often is, so, does St. Andrew really welcome folks from all walks of life? What a joy it is to look them directly into their eyes and say, absolutely, all are welcome in this place.
Someone once said that hospitality is first and foremost our response to God's love and welcome to us. It is also a team sport. So if you would like to be part of St. Andrew's strong tradition of hospitality, please join our team and host a Cafe Connect where we open wide our church doors and say, you belong here, and we're so glad you came. Stop by and sign up or send an email to connect@gostandrew.com.
We can't wait to greet you.
And now, as you return to the rhythms and routines of your daily lives this week, I leave you with this Lenten blessing, written by Roddy Hamilton and posted on the website Listening to the Stones. May the dust of the wilderness hold our footprints lovingly, shaped as they are by your hurt, for dust remembers. May the journey into wilderness unfold honestly, for honesty is the gift your soul recognizes as you. May your time in this wilderness be shaped by space rather than minutes, so there is time enough for all of you. May the stones in this wilderness cry out your name loudly, that your spirit recognizes the voice that has been calling you always. And may you know this wilderness has been expecting you, and you find between the stones a promise growing.